At 2:57 p.m. on Monday, April 15th, 2013, an email from Twitter popped up on my phone headlined, "Popular in your network." Now, I usually delete these useless spam, but this time the content preview caught my eye. 2:52. I don't know what the hell that was, but I'm shaking, everyone's sprinting. 2:54. Explosion on Boylston Street. 2:59. I think a bomb just went off in Boston, can't tell, smell smoke. At 2:56, Reuters became the first professional media bureau to tweet the breaking news. But it wasn't until 3:39, almost an hour later, that a professional news organization broke into its programming to report on air that 2 bombs had detonated at the end of the Boston Marathon. The actual time of the explosions was 2:49 p.m. We teenagers often get criticized for spending too much time online. But beyond ignoring designated family time, there really isn't much danger in our apparent addiction, right? The growth of digital culture and the widespread availability of mobile devices that enable users to be always connected has profoundly changed not just the nexus for social interaction, but also the news media landscape. The lines between the consumers of news and producers of news have become blurred, mainly through the rise of the citizen journalist. Now, let's look to the digital aggregate website Reddit. In July of 2012, moments after hearing of a shooting at a local movie theater, Morgan Jones, an 18-year-old of Denver, Colorado, opened a Reddit thread and began posting as much information as he could in order to build an accurate timeline of the tragedy. And it worked. Now, the very nature of Reddit's apparatus allows for the possibility of hoaxers and misinformation, but the theory was that through the instant feedback of thousands of upvotes and downvotes, in effect, crowdsourced fact-checking, Reddit could winnow out the good from the bad and keep the report accurate. And they did. According to Megan Garber of The Atlantic, the timeline was the go-to source on the story. Professional investigative journalists had been unable to find a social media profile for the alleged shooter. Jones's crowdsourced detectives did. In theory, harnessing the collective effort of any large number of people to conduct relatively simple tasks increases the efficiency of performing those tasks by the degree of the number of people you employ. However, crowdsourcing the assembly of breaking news coupled with the instantaneous worldwide reach of social networks can have unintended consequences, as the events surrounding the bombing at the Boston Marathon revealed. You see, the process of breaking news is fundamentally a precarious one. By the time stories go to air, the idea is that news teams have quickly but accurately pieced together the elements of a report and can reliably relay it to the viewer. Recently, however, according to New York Times columnist David Carr, in the face of increasing competition from social media-based reporting, the pressure for mainstream media to produce is ratcheted up steadily. And this creates an environment in which bad reporting can thrive and dominoes can quickly fall the wrong way. In essence, nowadays, any old Joe Schmo with an internet connection can quite literally make the news. Let's look at Sunil Tripathi, a student at Brown University who'd been reported missing about a month before the marathon attack. After the FBI released 2 photos of the suspected bombers, whom we now know to have been brothers Tamerlan and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev, a Reddit thread was created, with users comparing the picture of Dzhokhar to Sunil Tripathi. By 10 p.m., it had become a leading theory on Reddit that Tripathi was one of the missing suspects. Later that evening, Greg Hughes tweeted that he'd heard on the Boston Police Department radio that investigators had identified the suspects as Mike Mulugeta and Sunil Tripathi. Sunil Tripathi's name was never once said on a Boston Police Department scanner. But that didn't stop the snowball of retweets and national news featurettes that followed based on this very theory. 7 minutes after Hughes's tweet, a cameraman for a Hartford News affiliate picked up on the post and relayed the Mulugeta-Tripathi theory to his followers. It would be retweeted over 1,000 times. Moments after that, a reporter at BuzzFeed does the same to his 81,000 followers. By 2:57 a.m., with much of the World Wide Web convinced Reddit had gotten it right from the start, ABC News reporter Luke Russert tweeted the photo of the younger Tsarnaev with the caption, "This pic kind of feeds Tripathi theory." 180,000 followers. Half an hour later, Perez Hilton sent it out. As of April 2013, Perez Hilton had 6 million followers. The internet celebrated that Reddit had solved the bombing, CNN was clueless, and the FBI was inept. All of this despite the fact that over the course of the evening, 14 city, state, and federal law enforcement officials all categorically denied Tripathi was a suspect. But that's still not all. Between 3 and 4 a.m., Tripathi's sister Sanjita received 58 calls on her cell phone. About half of them are reporters calling for comment on her brother being named an enemy of the state, and the other half are death threats, close to 2/3 of which include rape. Death threats also start to fill the Facebook page that Tripathis had set up to find their missing son. And by the way, for those of you asking who Greg Hughes is, he's a guy on Twitter. You see, real life moves much slower than the technologies that drive our newscasts. There's a gap between facts and comprehension, and what ends up filling that gap is speculation. According to Farhad Manju of Slate magazine, they're just shooting the shit, and the excrement ends up hitting innocent targets. Hong Kwu for Neiman Reports writes that this style of reporting will likely appeal to a new generation of consumers, willing to tolerate high levels of uncertainty in exchange for watching an event unfold live, regardless of whether or not the source has any press credentials. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the fundamental problem. This hyper-connected, always online, text-first, asked-questions-later generation must not be willing to tolerate these high levels of uncertainty. If we do, we voluntarily open the floodgates to drastic, impulsive reactions made in haste out of hoaxes and unverified speculations. From something as innocuous as a Jan falling for an archery club email, to falsely accusing an innocent young man of committing domestic terrorism. Even so, there are those who, understandably, believe we should appreciate the interplay between traditional journalism and social media with a sense of symbiotic dependence. News gathering would have tentacles in every corner of the internet. Users become the audience, and the audience becomes a contributor. But there is fault with too much collaboration between media styles. Due to the recent sea change caused by digital networking apps, in order to remain relevant, CNN is now forced to depend on technologies that make it way too easy to follow breaking news too closely. Now, I'm well aware of the danger of standing on the wrong side of history. I do not propose a rejection of innovation, but merely its cautioned integration. Social media and professional media both have their roles, but damaging consequences occur when they transcend each other's borders and play each other's game.